4th time I filmed this video now. Hopefully this is the last time. I think I've got everything now. And this one's going to be about how to research comics on VeVe, or just how to research comics in general, how to get a overall sense of the comics. I've got 3 examples I'll give you. I'm going to kind of walk you through my process, and I'll walk you through with these 3 examples. So let's jump right into it. We'll start with Marvel Comics number 1. So what do I use to research these? How do I research? Where do I start? I go to Go Collect. That's the first place I go. I'll have links to these things down in the description below. That way you guys can find these things a little easier. Go Collect will give you like sales history, sales charts, last sales. It'll show you the last sales. It'll show you the listings on eBay, or how much it sold for, when it sold, how many copies have sold in the last 90 days, what the average sale per copy was in those last 90 days. So yeah, I'm starting with Marvel Comics number 1. And this one's going to be different. It's an older book. It's a rare book. The highest grade that was given out to this book was a 9.4. And according to CGC's census, there was only one 9.4. And that one 9.4 has sold one time, which was November 21st, 2019, for 1.26 million. Then you go down to a 9.0. According to the census, there's one. The last sale of it was February 25th, 2010, for $227,000. Then the next grade available is an 8.5. The census on that one, for some reason, says not available. There was 3 sales. They were all different serial numbers that sold, so I know there's at least 3 of them on the census. But the last one sold February 26th, 2009, for $155,000, 350. 155, 350. An 8.0. According to the census, there's one. Last sale was November 19th, 2009, $89,000. 7.5. According to the census, there's 2. Last sale was February 22nd, 2012, for $113,500. And then a 4.5. According to the census, there's 3 of those. And a 4.5 just sold January 17th this year for $360,000. And that is the last recorded sale of that book. Next up is Web of Spider-Man 118. According to the census, there are 197 9.8 copies of Web of Spider-Man 118. 197 that have been graded by CGC. In the last 90 days, there's been 124 sales of a 9.8 with an average sale of $600. And you'll see this one actually has a sales chart with some data that kind of shows, if you look, it's kind of trending up. So you go look at the 9.6s. According to the census, there's 260 9.6s. In the last 90 days, there's been 125 sales of a 9.6 with an average sale of $240. And then you have the 9.4s. According to the census, there's 225 9.4s. You've had 96 sales in the last 90 days with an average of $157 for a 9.4. Now, we're going to look at this third book. This one is The Eternals, number 1. According to the census, there are 599 9.8s. In the last 90 days, there's been 490 sales. Average sale of $1746. 9.6s. There's 1,469 9.6s, according to the census. 1,024 of them sold within the last 90 days. Average price of $413. 9.4s, there's 1,478 of them, according to the census. 888 sales in the last 90 days. Average $263. Okay, so I have that information. What's the next thing I do? Next place I go is Key Collector. It gives you some more stats about the comics, and they've got hot lists, trending lists. They tell you the upcoming key comics to be keeping an eye out for, the ones that have been released this week. There's a lot of information on Key Collector also. So that's my second stop. And what does Key Collector tell me about Marvel Comics number 1? It tells me there was 80,000 copies of the first printing printed. There was 80,000 copies printed. They had a second printing where they printed 800,000 copies. It's the first appearance of the Human Torch, not the Fantastic Four Human Torch. This is the Golden Age Human Torch. It is the second appearance of Namor the Submariner. It's the first appearance of Dorma, Namor's cousin. First appearance of Khazar, David Rand. First appearance of Angel, but not the Angel from the X-Men. This is a Detective Angel. First comic published by Timely, who would go on to become known as Marvel Comics. First printing of this book sold out in 1 week. That's what Key Collector tells me about Marvel Comics, number 1. What does Key Collector tell me about Web of Spider-Man 118? Well, first off, it's number 8 on the Hot 10 for the week. It just entered the Hot 10. It's its first week on the Hot 10. That's the first thing it tells me. Second thing it tells me is the first appearance of Ben Reilly as the Scarlet Spider. He would not take the name Scarlet Spider until Spider-Man 53, which was the next issue in this storyline. This week had record-breaking sales. 9.0's up 21%, 8.5 up 29%, and 9.6 of the newsstand edition is up 8%, and 8.5 of the newsstand edition is up 17%. And while I was looking at the Hot 10, I also saw Amazing Spider-Man number 3. First appearance of Dr. Octopus was also on the Hot 10. It was number 4 on the Hot 10. So what does Key Collector tell me about Eternals number 1? It's the first partial team appearance of the Eternals and the Deviants. First appearance of Icarus. First appearance of Crow and Brother Toad, who are Deviants, enemies of the Eternals. First appearance of Margot Damien. And that's the information I get from Key Collector. Next thing I go look at is, believe it or not, YouTube. I listen to, there's comic book investors. You can find comic book flippers. You can find comic shop owners. You can find people in the comic industry. You can find comic fans. And I just kind of watch a variety of that material and get the overall sentiment from the community. Am I hearing things that are lining up? With a book like Marvel Comics, an older book like that, you're not going to hear a lot of chatter around any of those groups of people, the investors, the flippers. You're not going to hear a lot of chatter because there's probably not a book coming up for sale. You'll probably hear about it next week because of its big $360,000 sale of the 4.5. But with a book like that, you don't need to know the general sentiment. It's a classic book. That one's kind of a no-brainer. That one, you don't really need to do much more research. You already know. It's like an Action Comics 1 or Detective Comics 27, Amazing Fantasy 15, you know. It's one of those books. It's on that tier. So, what did those sources tell me about Web of Spider-Man 118? That's actually how that got on my radar to go look it up on Go Collect and Key Collector to see what the hell was going on with it. You've got Scarlet Spider, Ben Reilly coming back into the comics right now, and I started hearing rumblings about it, which is why I went to Go Collect. I started seeing the little uptrend on the charts and Go Collect. So then I went and looked at Key Collector. It's number 8 on the Hot Comics for the week. So see, one side kind of brought it to my attention, so I went and looked at the other side, and it kind of verified, both sides are verifying each other. And that's kind of what you're looking for. Eternals number 1, though. A lot more sales of Eternals number 1, but that's a massively abnormal number of sales. And if you look at the sales data, each sale is getting lower and lower. What's happening is everybody's liquidating. Everybody's getting rid of that comic. And that's what I'm hearing, the chatter and things from the YouTube comic book flippers, the investors, the speculators. They're trying to get out of it. For years, it was a $200 to $300 9.8 comic book. Then it peaked up at $2,500. And now it's selling for about $12, so it's about half that. Basically what happened here, everybody spec'd into this comic, got copies, got them graded, got them ready to sell in preparation for the movie. The movie came, the mass audience hated it, so now the comic's tanking. They were like around 1,700 right around the time of the movie, now they're at 1,200, they're just getting lower. And the last thing I look at is like rumors and speculation about the movies in the MCU. What are they rumoring, what are they speculating to happen in the MCU? What characters are supposed to be coming in? Are there supposed to be appearances the general public doesn't know about? So you gotta kind of be ahead of the speculation. You gotta kind of, is there any speculation with anything having to do with Marvel Comics number 1? Kind of. There kind of is. It's the second appearance of Namor, Submariner. And Namor the Submariner is supposed to be a pretty prominent character in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is coming out later this year. So Web of Spider-Man 118. I haven't heard any kind of rumors or speculation about the Scarlet Spider being in movies. And when it comes to the Eternals, right now I'm not hearing much that would drive the Eternals either. Nothing that would drive it back up. So then really you just gotta take all of that and you gotta weigh it all together and you gotta make the decision, is this worth buying? Is the hype gonna last for Scarlet Spider? Is it worth buying Web of Spider-Man 118? But yeah, it's important to look at all the aspects, especially the fan sentiment, especially the sentiment around characters. Because if you're betting on a first appearance or you're betting and that character fails, if the audience doesn't like it, guess where that comic's price is going? So that's how I research a comic. That's how I kind of make a decision whether I'm going to buy or not buy.